Welcome to Retail Retold, the stories behind how that store landed in your neighborhood. I'm Chris Ressa, in conversation with the people and stories shaping retail and real estate. Brought to you by DLC. Welcome to Retail Retold, everyone. Today I am joined by Cary Beale. Cary is one of the best recruiters in the retail real estate space. Number one recruiter in the retail real estate space. I'm excited for him to be here. I've known him for a long time, done a lot of business with him. Cary, welcome to the show.
Appreciate you having me. Thank you.
So, Cary, why don't you tell a little bit about who you are, what you do, and how you got to where you are? Because I think you took a career turn that most of my peers do not take.
Yeah, no, happy to kind of give you a little breakdown. So back, growing up, I grew up in Detroit. My family was in real estate. My dad had a lot of retail shopping centers. He owned approximately 100 retail shopping centers in the Detroit market. Smaller strip centers, 10,000 square feet, 15,000 square feet. I think the largest one was 50,000 square feet. So just grew up in the business, and I told myself I'm not going to do what my dad does, and I'm going to do something different. And right out of college, I opened a restaurant, and it was great and amazing, but I quickly realized I was working a lot harder than all of my peers, my parents, my friends that were in real estate and making a lot less money. So even though it was a very successful restaurant in Michigan, loved it, sold it, good story about that, decided to get back into real estate. So moved to Atlanta in 2005 and joined DDR. Bill Reed gave me an opportunity, hired me. I worked for DDR for approximately 10 years, a little over 10 years. And then in 2017, I made a switch over to Franklin Street and worked at Franklin Street, third-party company out of Florida, and worked for them for about 5 years. It was a great company, great experience, worked with a lot of excellent people. And then COVID came. And when COVID came, the whole world was kind of, things are happening all over, and had opportunity to do something different. My wife asked me if we wanted to relocate and move somewhere, move to the ocean and enjoy life, do something a little different. Thought it was going to be like a 6-month thing. Long story short, decided to do that, and we moved. And when we were in the process of moving, David Pauline, with the company I'm with right now, Pauline Search Partners, about 5 years ago, called me up. He was in a very unique situation. His dad was about to retire. He's been running the company for 45 plus years, and he didn't know what he was going to do. I kind of didn't know what I was going to do. So David and I just had like a little conversation and said, let's try it out. Who knows? We'll try it out for 3 months, 6 months, see how it works out. Fast forward 5 years later, still living abroad and still working with Pauline Search Partners, and I'm loving it. It's been an excellent career switch.
So obviously, I would call you're real estate adjacent. You're in the commercial real estate space, but you're not working on commercial real estate, and majority of your career was working on commercial real estate. How has that change been for you?
Yeah, at first it was a little tough. It took me probably about 6 months to adjust. But the reality is I realized quickly my 20 plus years of work in real estate. And, I did say at DDR, I had huge portfolio, 100 shopping centers and, 25 million square feet, my portfolio I was overseeing. So by understanding the terminology, understanding the players, understanding the people, it's really helped me switch into this mind frame of what are people looking for? How can I help them? How can I be of service to them? So, and it's still, I love doing deals, and this is kind of like doing a deal. It's doing a deal on a different side, but I do miss the real estate part, but I also love the helping people find a job part.
Awesome. So that's a great point. So in general, how many placements do you do in a year? Do you work on? What type of things do you work on?
Yeah, so we're typically working on approximately 15, call it assignments at a time. Our number one is, property management, leasing, asset management, construction, development. Those are our main. We obviously do other ones. We do accounting and legal, but those are our main 5. We're approximately doing, give or take, 75 placements a year. Some years more, some years less, but we're, a lot. Most of them work out, but we're dealing with, 15 to 20 at a time usually.
And since you started, has the industry, not the commercial real estate, but the recruiting space, has that evolved?
So definitely, the huge, what's really changed over the last 5 years, especially with me being here, is the working at home, not working at home, remote, hybrid. That's been a huge change, and that's something that I can dive deep into. But there's a huge disconnect there in regards to what candidates want and what companies want, and that's a big challenging thing that we deal with every day.
Elaborate. What's the challenge?
Yeah, I would say probably 80 to 90% of our companies really want people in the office, and 80 to 90% of candidates really want hybrid or remote. So to try and fill that gap and try to talk, a good candidate into going into the office, or try to talk a company into doing some hybrid instead of 5 days in the office, it's just trying to find, at the end of the day, our goal is to put good people at good companies. And if we're not getting the best person for the company because the person wants to be remote or hybrid, we have conversations with the companies to try and make it a win-win.
What's the I don't want to put you on the spot, but what do you think about hybrid and the concept that obviously work can be done from anywhere? But if you're trying to build a team and a culture, there's some good literature around, like, when you're connected in person and you're going and you're in the company softball league and you're doing all that, that matters. So how do you think about that?
So even though I work 100% remote now, I grew up in an office. I spent 20 plus years going to the office 10 hours a day, every single day, driving an hour commute. I think people that don't work in an office, especially for the first 10 to 15 years in their career, are at a huge disadvantage. I think in office is absolutely needed, required, to help promote you within, to help you, get to know your coworkers and colleagues. And I think it's huge. I personally, if I'm a company and I'm running a company and my especially newer people in the industry want to work remote, I have no interest.
Yeah, the my my middle brother is in sales for a large software company, and right after COVID, they were like completely choice hybrid or completely choice either work from home or come to the office. And he was working from home, and he was like, and I was like, why don't you go to the office? He's like, no one's in the office. The only ones in the office, Chris, are the executives. Everyone else is
Yeah.
working from home. I was like, Travis,
In
I
there.
was
Yeah.
like, go to the office. You'll be the only one that they see and notice. Like, this is a huge opportunity. Start going to the office. So,
200. I mean, I can't agree more. I can't agree more. I mean, I did a post probably, it was actually last Las Vegas, so it's probably 10 months ago now, about working in office, not office, and just saying I really encourage people to be in the office. And I got destroyed on, I think it was called LinkedIn Lunatics, and I mean, a million views. I think it maybe 400, 500,000 views and hundreds of thousands of comments of like, no, you don't know our new, where we are. We need to be working remote, and you're just doing this because you want to push real estate. And the reality is, my own son who's in college and my kids that I'm, trying to teach and mentor, I tell them you better be in the office. If you get a job that's remote, there's a 0% chance I'm gonna, I'm not gonna support that.
so, okay. So obviously, since you started, remote work, hybrid work, that's become really big discussion point. What, how much today on the human capital side, and you're talking to employers, is AI coming up?
Yeah, I mean, we talk about AI all the time. There's lots of people that are scared. We're talking to companies right now that are talking about bringing in AI specialists. I think it's still several years, a few years away from actually impacting. I don't necessarily think, you know, there's a lot of jobs at risk in regards to real estate because the human contact is huge. But AI comes up all the time.
Have you seen anything where anyone in outer space, right? There's a lot of headlines around, major companies having a layoff and then going on their earnings calls and saying this was due to our ability to deploy AI for that task. Have you seen that in real estate?
Zero so far.
Okay. Do you think that comes?
I mean, a little bit, but I think adjust. I think adjust. I think some people will lose their job to AI. It might be on the legal side, or it might be on another side where you can just, you know, put the stuff in AI and it can figure it out. But I think you'll need somebody that runs the AI department. So I think you lose some jobs and you gain some jobs.
Got it. Okay. Good background. Really appreciate it. Now we're going to go into some interview tips because what's still going on is interviewing. AI hasn't changed that interviewing is a practice in the job placement world. Maybe one day AI will change that. I don't know if they have a different solution, but today interviewing is uh, at the core of job placement in America for every industry. And so, not just real estate. So we thought it would be interesting to give 5 interview tips. Um, and let's just dive in, Cary. What's tip 1?
Yeah. Definitely, I would say number one is your reputation. And what people don't realize, especially young in your career, is your reputation follows you. So who you are today, 22, 23, 25, 30, is who people will think you are when you're 40, 50, 60. So if you start off your career by, excuse my French, but screwing people over, not being reputable, not being responsible, not being somebody who dependable, it's going to follow you. So who you are today is who you are in the future.
I love that tip. I have a question on that tip. I don't know if you talk about this later, but so reputation, obviously. How about the reputation as a job hopper? That's
Oh,
obviously a hot topic. I don't know if you're going to talk about it, but what's the stance on job hopping? Because you could read all these articles and some people say, oh, it's not a big deal anymore. And some people say, like, still scanning a resume and going, wow, this person's been at 37 different companies in the last 18 months. They're never going to stay. So how's that coming up right now? What's your take?
huge problem when people jump jobs. And yes, of course, there can always be a COVID story. There could be you were taking care of a
Extenuating
sick
circumstances.
person.
Yeah.
There's always something. I did a post the other day on LinkedIn about, 6 jobs in 5 years. Sometimes you got to look in the mirror and say it's not just the company. Uh, I personally, when I'm representing a company and we've worked together a lot, I won't send somebody who jumps, yes, of course, we've had 1 or 2 falls, like I'll understand it and we'll discuss it. And if we feel like it's appropriate, we'll submit you. However, if you've had, like I said, 6 jobs in 5 years, it does not look good. Our clients don't want that. It can't get past me. And if it does get past me and you talk me into it, which is hard to do, our clients probably don't want to interview anyway. So being loyal and keeping a job says a lot about a person, 200%.
Yeah. One of the things I think for everybody, like on our end, is that we're looking at on that front is just the frictional cost of replacing a job, right? It's no different than the frictional cost of releasing a space multiple times in a life cycle of that space. Um, we have the tenant all the time who says, like, yeah, you might be able to get the new guy at a higher rent, but there's a cost to it, all this stuff. And the same applies in a job role, right? If you're constantly,
100%.
replacing it, there's a lot of frictional costs. There's a lot of studies done on how much it actually costs organization to go through a replacement over a period of time in that same role. And I think like that's what comes to mind, right? How much time are we going to invest in getting this person onboarded, trained and developed? What's the time when they actually start becoming a strong contributor to the organization? And is that window, that period, is that more time than their average length of stay at their past jobs? And if it is, that can be a challenge for employers.
I 100% agree. And it's a huge pet peeve to me. So we're 100% on the same page.
Got it. Okay. Interview tip number 2. What do you got?
So most candidates don't do a great job explaining clearly and precisely what they do. So I tell candidates, you need to have an elevator speech. When you go and meet with somebody, you go and talk to somebody, you want a short 1, 2, 3 sentences max about what you do. A lot of candidates ramble on and tell, I do this, I do that, I do this, I do that. And they talk about being a generalist and not really highlight out being a specialist. I say, make it short, sweet, and simple.
So I love this one because one of the things we're evaluating, because this is role agnostic. This is industry agnostic. How strong of a communicator are you? And I should be able to leave the interview, go home at night, say, I met this person to my wife today. Here's, over dinner, here's what they do, here's what they're good at, here's who they are as a person. And if I can't clearly articulate that to someone else, that means it probably wasn't cleanly articulated to me, which is a true challenge. And I should leave that interview, or the interviewer should leave that interview really knowing, what does that person do? What are they good at? What do they not do? What type of, you know, person is that? Why would they be a good fit? Why would they not? The interviewer should be able to leave the interview knowing those things. And I see, just, reading through the social media sphere, there's a lot of interviewers who don't leave the meeting understanding all of that. And, um, you know, especially when you have a job that has a significant amount of applicants. When there's a significant amount of applicants for a job, right? One of the questions is a genuine question I would ask is in their opinion, what separates them from the hundreds of other applicants we got? And if that answer is not specific and unique to them, that's a challenge, because I'm not separating them, right? I like If you say something like you work hard, well,
It's great.
everyone's going to say they work hard in an interview. If that was the bar, all 150 applicants say they work hard, right? And so there has to be something unique to them about who they are, what they do. And I think all too often, I, we, an interviewer can leave and not get that from the candidate, which is a disservice to the candidate because it's a missed opportunity.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it also speaks to their level of, how well they communicate. And you want someone who knows who they are, super self-aware, can articulate it as well, because that leads to how good are they at articulating and communicating other things? If they're struggling to communicate who they are, what they do, well, some topic that's a little more challenging, or is not something so near and dear to the heart, they may not be able to communicate that effectively. And that's critical in the workplace today.
Yeah, I mean, that's everything, right? If they're representing your company, if they can't talk about who they are, then I think it's a challenge of, like you said, representing the company and how they're going to represent you.
I'll give you another take on going back to point one on the reputation, and then on the job hopping. One of the things that people talk about, the job hopping and loyalty. One of the things I take from job hopping is the decision-making ability of that candidate. And how good is their decision making? So if I see a resume that has that, and I start going through, what I'm really checking for is how good their decision making ability is along the way. Why did they leave this job? What happened? What was the reasons? And it doesn't just speak to loyalty, it speaks to how strong of a decision maker they are. Um,
Right? I like
Little
that.
tidbit.
No, that's great.
Um, all right, what's number three?
Next one is, I always tell people, like, when you go to an interview, like, don't try to be who you think the company wants you to be.
Oh, this is a good one.
Be yourself, be genuine, be yourself. A lot of people go in interviews and they try to be, okay, I'm gonna act more professional, or I'm gonna act more funny, or I'm gonna, be yourself, be authentic, because companies want to hire you who you are, number one. And number two is, let's just say you get the job and you put on a fake persona of who you are, and now you got to act that way for the next couple of years. Like, be yourself, be authentic.
I love this one. I also think, here's the other piece. I think candidates think they know more about what that company wants in that specific role than they might think at times. And so sometimes they put on a fake persona and that fake persona is not what the company wanted, and they wanted the authentic.
Person who you were. Yeah, I love that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like they impersonated someone who we don't want for that role because they're making an assumption based on, you know, a past experience which might not be true in the current context, right? They think that an accountant for means this, and this is what everyone wants in an accountant. Well, it might not be true, right? The accountant at Coca-Cola might be, the role might be different than the accountant at Home Depot, and therefore you should be yourself because you shouldn't make a bet that you know exactly what they're looking for in this. You can't get it all from the job description that was posted. The
Yeah.
job description that was posted tells a lot about the skills. It tells a little bit about the culture, but most of them don't go deep about, you know, who they're really looking for. They could do a better job of that. That's definitely something job descriptions could do better at. But don't make an assumption. You'll learn that in the interview. You'll be able to learn that in the interview because most employers will tell you. So that's a great one, Gary.
Yeah, the next one's going to lead into this a little bit similar to that. And the fourth tip is understanding what the problem, what the company has and how to solve that problem. A lot of people go into interviews thinking, what do they want? And the reality is these companies are hiring because you have to fix a problem. You have to fix, do they not have enough property managers? Do they have somebody that can't travel enough? Do they have somebody who's not accessible enough? And trying to figure out what the problem is and talking on the problem and being the problem solver, not necessarily what you want.
Yeah. How can you actually help them solve the problem that they have? That's going to make a lasting impression, right? That is going to make a lasting impression. Uh, Especially if you've gone a little deeper on that, like you did some homework, even if you're wrong, I like that you took the time to go deeper and try to problem solve before the interview. Like that's someone who's hungry, that's someone who's uh showing ambition and an initiative. That is someone who likens themselves to a problem solver. And even if they get it wrong, just that initiative on that to me is super compelling to a candidate. And uh, yeah, it's amazing how many interviews that's not being communicated by a candidate, and yeah, so good one.
Got it.
Last tip, Cary.
So this is an important one to me. This is be different, right? Companies interview hundreds of people and they, yes, I'm smart. Yes, I'm hardworking. Yes, I got experience. Yes, I don't jump jobs. But what makes you stand out? What makes you different? And, the strip mall guy did a post probably about a month or 2 months ago about interviewing a bunch of, I think it was interns or people. And one of the kids, and I wish I knew his name off the top of my head, one of the kids literally printed out every single post the strip mall guy did for the last 2 years and created a book that's, 200 pages and went into an interview with him and just wowed him and wowed me when I read strip mall guy's LinkedIn post. And my point of that is like, yes, you don't have to print every single post or every single thing on the company or whatever, but like to be different. If you're a property manager, go to properties, go see them, go do the homework, tell the company, even though they're not asking, what you can do to add value.
So you
I
see this
like it.
boat?
Yes.
You see this boat? So, um, do you know the phrase like burn the boats?
No, I'm not familiar with that.
Cortez, he was uh he they were going to battle, and he didn't want anyone to have a way out. So when he landed, they burned the boats, so their only option was to fight through it. All right. So this is a common, uh, what I would call story about like being all in. I had a candidate that was transitioning from acquisitions to leasing. And I was, you know, after the interview, I was like questioning whether they really wanted to move from acquisitions and leave acquisitions and go to leasing. So this candidate went to Hobby Lobby, bought a model boat. The candidate burned the boat. Don't recommend doing this.
Yeah.
And FedExed it to me with the story of Cortez printed out and
Goosebumps.
said, I'm all in, Chris.
I love
And
it.
And that
And you
person is
hired
still at
him.
DLC today. That was about a decade ago. And that proved to me this person was ready to burn the boats and be all in, but they clearly stood out on the job. I still have the boat on my desk today.
I love it. And I in my, 25 years in real estate, I've heard 20 stories like this, not 200, not 2000. So that's one story a year. Like, why not be different? I think about back when I was at DDR and I wanted to make a good impression on somebody from TIA Craft. And I was traveling around with him, and we were going door to door. We were just talking, and we were seeing different shopping centers. And he mentioned to me that his wife loves Flying Biscuit and wished they had a Flying Biscuit in Charlotte. At the time, they didn't have Flying Biscuit. They got the best biscuits. So long story short, I want to make a solid impression on him. He left. I sent him the next day. I FedExed in 24 Flying Biscuit, frozen, whatever, to his house. And to this day, we've got an amazing relationship, and we laugh at that. And my point is, be different. Do something different. You have an interview, everything goes well. Yeah, you can send a follow-up email card. Send Dunkin' Donuts. Send a Starbucks. Be different. Stand out.
Yeah, and the way I sometimes different is better than better. And sometimes, so there's a story, it's often told in it's a TED Talk style speech. I don't know if you know the story of Roger Bannister. Does that name ring a bell?
No,
Roger
I've
Bannister.
heard the name, but I'm not familiar with the story.
So Roger Bannister in 1954 broke the 4-minute mile. In the track world, he's super famous. In athletics, he's a famous. It was science believed at one point in time that the heart would actually explode if you ran the mile in under 4 minutes. So Roger Bannister went and he beat the 4-minute mile. And there was a TED Talk or some sort of speech where the speaker says, "Does anyone know who Roger Bannister was?" And a lot of the audience raised their hand and said, "Yes, he broke the 4-minute mile." And then he says, "Does anyone know who John Landy is?" And no one raises their hand. John Landy was the guy who broke Roger Bannister's record 18 days later. And the speaker goes on to say, the difference is what Roger Bannister did was remarkable. And what John Landy did, he was just faster. He wasn't remarkable. And so the world remembers Roger Bannister. He was different. He did something. John Landy, not so different, not so remarkable, just faster. And so I always remember that when I'm thinking about, being different, being unique, being remarkable. I always remember that story of Roger Bannister and John Landy, because to me, literally 18 days later, this guy beat Roger Bannister's record and no one remembers John
Great. That's a
Landy.
great story.
So, all right, Cary, this has been fantastic. I really appreciate the time. How do people find you?
So we have our website, PollineSearch.com. They can find me on LinkedIn, Cary Beale, CaryBeale, if it's not spelled out. But yeah, either LinkedIn or our website.
Awesome. Cary, this has been great. Really appreciate the time. Thank you so much. Tips were phenomenal.
Thanks, Chris. Really enjoyed it, and look forward to seeing you in Vegas.
Yeah, man.
See you soon.
Appreciate you watching. Hit subscribe. See you in the next one.